Okay, so the question here says figure B8.1 shows a cathode ray oscilloscope, and this is what they have shown us. Of course, if I look at, there's a filament, what follows there, if you see properly, that's the cathode. A there should represent what we are calling as being the grid, control, in this case, because the cathode is the one surrounding the filament, and B is representing the anode. Then if you look at C there, that C is representing what we call as being the Y plate, and if you look at D, it is representing the X plate. And of course, what you see there is actually the screen. I hope you can watch my videos, then you'll be able to see this. So it says name the parts labeled A and B. So A is simply the grid control, so that is the grid control or control grid. Then B is representing the anode. So there are two cylindrical anodes that you can have there. Then B says state the function of the part labeled C. In other words, what is the function of the part labeled Y? So the function of the Y plate to deflect the electron beam, vertically, if you want, vertically or up or down. That's what you can say. So if you want, you can say deflect the electron beam vertically or up or down. That's the role of what we call as being the Y plate. It is as opposed to the X plate, which deflects the electron beam horizontally or left or right. Then C there says state how the electrons are produced in the cathode ray oscilloscope. So how are electrons produced? And it was 1 mark. They didn't want you to write a lot of things. So remember that electrons are produced by a process called thermionic emission, right? So we can simply say that electrons are produced. They are produced by thermionic emission. Now, what happens in this thermionic emission? Well, it actually involves heating a cathode. In this case, you need just to heat the cathode. So heating a cathode, causes the release of electrons. So just heating the cathode will cause the release of electrons. In simple terms, that is what we would have actually said. By heating the cathode strongly, it will cause the release of those electrons. That's what we mean. Right, let's look at the last part under this section. It says explain why the tube of the cathode ray oscilloscope is evacuated. And why is it evacuated? To be evacuated, in other words, why is it, why do they remove air so that it remains a vacuum? There are no air molecules. So that's very important because it actually helps, prevent or reducing the effect of thermionic emission. So the reason why the tube of the cathode ray is evacuated is simply, maybe I can say, to prevent, if you want, you can say to prevent electrons. So you can say to prevent electrons from colliding. So to prevent electrons from colliding with air molecules. So now what happens is that when the electrons collide with the air molecules, they lose the energy and they'll get reattracted back to the cathode, and hence this effect of thermionic emission will not take place. So we want to prevent electrons from colliding with the air molecules. Right, thank you so much. So please watch out for my next video and see how we are going to answer B9.